Take the shop. All I need is money. I don't have the money, but I have something far more valuable. I will give you my daughter's hand in marriage. That is my payment.
Father, please don't do this to me. I am your daughter, not an animal.
Have you ever felt like the world was against you? Like even the people who should love you the most are the ones selling you out? This is the story of Grace,
Father.
a girl who was treated as if she was worthless by her own father, only to later discover a life-changing secret that shook everything. If you think your life is tough, wait until you hear what happened to Grace. Grace was a girl with a kind heart and a smile as bright as the morning sun. But her heart was heavy, because her mother had just passed away. Grace, with great sadness, told her father, Mr. Okafo, that he would be next. But guess what? She was wrong. Only 2 weeks after her mother's funeral, her father brought a new woman into the house. Her name was Madame Cause Trouble. Madame Cause Trouble didn't come alone. She brought along her daughter, Adoma, almost the same age as Grace, was lazy and mean. From now on, this is your new mother, Mr. Okafo said, without even looking at Grace. He had been secretly seeing Madame Cause Trouble, even while Grace's mother was still alive. The changes in the house were immediate. Madame Cause Trouble took the biggest bed, wore the finest clothes, and ate the best meat in the soup. Grace was left to clean the house and do all the hard work. Grace, take those undergarments I left there. Wash them properly, and make sure there's no stain, Madame Cause Trouble would shout, sitting comfortably under the fan, eating fried fish. Grace, you lazy girl. Go to the market immediately. Madame Cause Trouble would scold. One day, Grace was crying behind the kitchen. Her father walked past her and, without stopping, said, Grace, stop crying. You're strong. Just do what Madame Cause Trouble asks. I don't want trouble in my house. Grace realized in that moment that her father no longer loved her. He only cared for his new wife. A few days later, a young man named Obina arrived in the village. Dressed in an old shirt stained with oil and worn-out trousers. Obina had a small shop in the village, where he used to fix Mr. Okafo's old car. However, there weren't many customers, and Obina wanted to leave the village for the city in search of a better life. He came to Mr. Okafo, asking if he could buy the mechanic shop and tools. Madame Cause Trouble, already knowing about the shop, smiled greedily at the opportunity. However, Mr. Okafo had no money. He had spent all of his savings on Madame Cause Trouble, and he was deep in debt. I want your shop, Madame Cause Trouble insisted. But we don't have the money to pay you, Mr. Okafo responded. Obina looked at the house and noticed Grace outside, lifting a large log of wood. Her face was covered in dust, but her beauty still shone through. Obina felt a tug in his heart. I don't want your money, Obina said softly. I want a wife to take with me to the city. Give me that girl, and the shop is yours. Madame Cause Trouble laughed without hesitation. Take her. She's useless anyway. She only knows how to eat and cry. Mr. Okafo hesitated for a moment, but then he saw the opportunity to get rid of his debt. It's a deal, he said coldly. Take her away. Grace fell to her knees and held her father's legs. Father, please don't sell me like an animal. I am your daughter. This man is a stranger. He is poor. I will suffer. Her father pushed her hands away. He has paid for you with his shop. You are now his. Go and pack your things. Adoma, her stepsister, came out and mocked her. Bye-bye, village girl. Enjoy your life with your dirty mechanic. Grace had nothing to pack. She only had the old clothes she was wearing. She followed Obina out of the compound, crying so hard that she could hardly see the road. She looked back at her home, but no one cared. They all had smiles on their faces, and not even a single goodbye. Grace looked at Obina, who was walking ahead of her, carrying a small bag. He didn't say anything, but she could feel his sadness. I am worthless. My father hates me. My stepmother hates me. And now, I am married to a man who has nothing, she thought to herself. The bus to the city was crowded, and Grace sat by the window, tears streaming down her face. Obina sat beside her in silence but handed her a small bottle of water. She took it but couldn't bring herself to thank him. When they arrived in the city, the sun was setting, and the noise of the city overwhelmed Grace. There were so many cars and tall buildings, but Obina didn't stop at any of the grand houses. Instead, he led her down a narrow, dark path. At the end of the path was a small house made of old wood and rusted iron sheets. The door was broken, and the windows had no glass. This is where I live, Obina said. Grace entered. The floor was cold cement, and there was only one small pot for cooking. An old foam mattress lay on the floor as their bed, and there was no electricity, just a small candle. Grace sat on the floor, covering her face with her hands. She thought about her mother, about how her father had traded her for a mere shop. She felt as though her life had ended. I know it's not a palace, Obina said softly, kneeling beside her. I'm just a mechanic. I work hard, but the money is small. But I promise you, Grace, you will not be a slave here. You will not fetch water for anyone. You will not be beaten. Obina went out and came back with a small loaf of bread and an egg. He cooked the egg and offered it to her. Eat, he said. You haven't eaten since morning. Grace looked at him. What will you eat, Obina? She asked. I'm not hungry, he lied, but Grace could hear his stomach growling. He had given her the only food he had. For the first time, Grace felt a warmth in her heart. Even though he was poor, Obina was kind. He treated her with more care than her father ever had. Over the next few weeks, they lived like that, modestly, but together. Obina worked at a small garage fixing cars, coming home with grease on his face and a few naira notes. They would buy small meals, but it was enough. Obina bought Grace a plastic comb for her hair and a second-hand pair of slippers. He treated her like a treasure, but one day, the rain fell hard. The roof leaked, and their mattress was soaked. They had no money to buy food that night. Grace looked at Obina, who was shivering in the corner, and her heart ached. Obina, she said. I can't just sit here and watch you suffer for me. I must find a job. I will help you. Obina shook his head. No, Grace. The city is too dangerous for a girl like you. You might get hurt. I'll be careful, Grace promised. I overheard the neighbor talking about a woman who needs a cook. I'll go there tomorrow. Maybe she'll hire me. The next morning, Grace set off to find the lady's house. She walked for hours and finally reached a grand house with tall gates and a beautiful garden. The owner was a young lady named Precious, who was beautiful but very proud. She sat by the pool, sipping juice, wearing expensive gold jewelry. Can you cook? Precious asked, eyeing Grace's old clothes. Yes, madam. I can cook very well, Grace replied, looking down. Precious hired Grace as her personal cook. Every day, Grace worked hard, cooking delicious meals and cleaning the kitchen. Precious paid her well. For the first time, Grace could buy food for Obina. They were happy, even with very little. One evening, Obina came to the gate of the mansion to pick Grace up. He was wearing his mechanic clothes, his hands covered in black oil. Precious, driving her car, noticed him. Despite his dirty clothes, Obina was handsome with strong shoulders. Precious couldn't help but feel drawn to him. Who was that man?
Precious asked Grace the next day. That's my husband, madam, Grace said with a smile. Precious smiled back. Oh, I see. He's quite handsome, you know. From that moment on, Precious became obsessed with Obina. She kept asking Grace about him and even invited him to fix her car. When Obina arrived, Precious dressed in her most expensive clothes, standing close to him, smiling flirtatiously. You have such skilled hands, Precious said. Why stay with a poor girl in a broken house? I can offer you a much better life. Obina, without looking at her, replied firmly, I have a wife. I love her. Madam, I don't need your money. Precious was furious. She was used to getting what she wanted, and now she wanted Obina. The next day, Precious called Grace into the living room and threw a thick bundle of money on the table. Take this money, she said. Leave your husband and go back to the village. I want him. A man like that should not be hungry. I can make him a king. Grace picked up the bundle of money and, with tears in her eyes, walked over to Precious. She threw the money back at Precious's feet. My husband is not for sale, Grace said, her voice shaking. We may be poor in money, but we are rich in peace. I will not leave him. Grace turned and ran out of the house. She ran all the way back to her small, broken home, where Obina was waiting for her. She hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. She didn't tell him about the money. She didn't want him to feel bad. But Precious wasn't done. She called the owner of the garage where Obina worked and ordered him to fire Obina, threatening to shut down his business if he didn't comply. The next day, Obina was let go. He came home, his face full of disappointment. I lost my job, Grace. We don't have money for rent. The landlord says we must leave. Grace held his hand. It's okay, Obina. We will find a way. God won't leave us. Times were tough, but Grace and Obina stuck together. Then one day, Chief Williams, a wealthy man from the village, called Obina to fix his car. Obina had fixed his car before, and the chief liked him for his honesty and hard work. At the party that night, Chief Williams introduced his son, Dr. Frank, who had just returned from abroad. When Obina saw Dr. Frank, his eyes widened with shock. Dr. Frank was Obina. He had been hiding his true identity to test Grace's love. Obina knelt before Grace, apologizing for the secret he had kept. I wanted to know if you truly loved me, even when I was poor. I want to treat you like the queen you are. Will you marry me again? Grace, overcome with emotion, stretched out her hands and said yes. Everyone celebrated, and Grace's father and stepmother, who had once sold her for a shop, were left destitute. They came to the mansion, begging for money, but were turned away. Grace, now the queen of her own life, lived happily ever after with Obinna. The lessons she learned along the way were simple: never judge a person by their clothes or their job, for a man in rags today can be king tomorrow. Never sell your loved ones for money, because money comes and goes, but love lasts forever. And if you want to sit on the throne with a king, you must be willing to sit with him when he is a beggar. Thank you very much for watching this wonderful story. If you love something like this, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.